Hey, I'm Doug, and welcome to Doppler's Gear Garage. In this video, we're checking out the brand new factory preset library for TONEX, and it is awesome. This video has been broken down into chapters, each of which is described and linked below so you can get to the exact content you're most interested in. Especially helpful if you want to come back and rewatch this video. All right, so in a moment, we're going to talk about 5 things I think you're going to want to know about this brand new factory free upgrade for TONEX. Then we're going to go through a range of style-driven demos, a number of which feature multiple guitars as well as bass, so you can hear these new sounds in action. I'm also going to kind of deconstruct the tone strategies I use for crafting the sounds. The presets for all those demos are also available for download for free down below in the description of this video. If by chance you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I want to invite you to do so. Don't forget to ring the bell so I can let you know when more videos are going to go online. With that said, let's get to it. 5 things I think you're going to want to know about TONEX. Number 1, is this upgrade applicable to all the different TONEX devices? That is to say, TONEX Pedal, TONEX One and the standalone TONEX application, and the answer is yes. Number 2, can you exchange presets and tone models freely between the different devices? Even if you're using something like TONEX One Joe Satriani Limited Edition? Absolutely. Number 3, what about bass players? There are a ton of new bass amps and bass pedal models inside the upgrade. However, depending on which version of TONEX you are upgrading for free, you get more stuff. So here's the thing. If you don't already have TONEX Max, which comes bundled with TONEX Pedal, I would strongly suggest considering spending the $99 to upgrade. It is worth every penny. As you might have guessed, link down below. Number 4, you're going to definitely want to make sure to back up not only your library, but your devices, because when you push the update to your devices, it's going to overwrite those presets. Number 5, what's my favorite thing about this? Well, I think the new tone models are great, and I just loved being able to go in and kind of customize the tones and make them my own. Just the same way if you walked into a music store and you plugged into an amp, somebody else had been playing it before you, you're going to adjust it the way it fits what you do, right? So there are a ton of great sounds that I was easily able to get in and make my own. With that said, let's get to the demos. So that was a little bit of a recap of the demo you heard at the very top of the video. Couple of things going on. For the guitar, I was using the orange OR120 tone model. For the bass, the Ampeg B15N. And that is one of my favorite bass amps, favorite plugins. I'm so excited to have that here inside TONEX now. All right, in terms of the guitar, I just brought the gain up a little bit, turned off all the effects, and brought the model volume down to compensate for that little bit of boost that I was getting in terms of the gain. Now, what I'm going to do in terms of the naming schema for all the presets that you can download, say I'll start with DD, Doug Doppler, and then the name of the tone model, in turn followed in parentheses by the name of the original preset. So what you can do is take a look at my preset if you want to, and the stock preset, and kind of compare what it was that I was doing to kind of chisel in the tones. And in particular, we're going to do that right now, looking at the B15N. All right, so here's the deal. The original preset, you can see, had more gain, more bass, and then in turn I brought up the mid-range, the treble, and the presence, and I pulled the depth back, and I also added the compressor. So here's the thing. The original preset for me was a little, if you will, wide in the hips and didn't have enough, if you will, kind of pokiness with the transients. So I kind of wanted to chisel the tone there to make it so, first of all, it had to compete, if you will, with 2 rhythm guitars, panned left and right, and kind of that melody kind of rhythm guitar that was dead center. So the bass has to do this thing where it's filling up the bottom end, but not too much, getting in the way of the kick drum. So again, bringing the hips in a little bit, but having enough pokiness that you hear the transient attack of it. All right, for the rest of the demos, we're going to go from low gain to high gain, and let's move on to something clean. So here in the San Francisco Bay Area, there is a guitar tech named Gary Brower, and he works on my guitars and also works on the guys like Joe, Kirk, James, and Neil, those guys. And in his shop, he's got a vintage Super Reverb that is the perfect amplifier, especially for playing blues or jazz. It's an amazing amp. And that's kind of the vibe what I was trying to dial in with this new tone model. I was super happy with it. Now, an interesting thing is a vintage Super Reverb does not have a presence or a resonance control, but that in turn helps you further shave the tone here to be able to kind of craft what it is that you're looking for. Also, I did a bunch of stuff in terms of backing off the gain and messing with the tone controls and also working with the reverb. If you want to take a deeper dive, you can compare my preset with the original one. Again, you can download that down below. Moving on. One of my goals for this video was to kind of curate some of my favorite amps from the real world and share them with you in terms of tone models that really resonated with me. The AC30 tone model is great. In this particular case, I took the stock preset, turned on the modulation. I just love that sound. It is admittedly a little 80s, but at the same time, you kind of the way some of the notes, if you will, kind of almost have a little bit of dirt under the nails. It's a clean sound, but yet there's just kind of this other thing happening. I left the reverb as it was. I turned on the delay, and instead of what was a mono delay, I engaged the stereo ping pong set to digital. And in turn, I took the compressor and put it at the beginning of the signal chain, which is what I would do. I would run my compressor into the AC30 as opposed to, well, after the amp, because an AC30 doesn't have an effects loop, does it? All right, in any case, I love that. Moving on. So the 59 Bassman is yet another classic amplifier. And in case you didn't know, that was the basis that Jim Marshall used for the JTM 45. So as I'm kind of using my fingers there, it's got that American classic tweed sound. But as I dig in, if you will, the envelope of the amp expands and gets something a little bit more British in flavor. Now, the thing is that originally that preset had some delay and reverb on that. I took it off. I just wanted that dry sound, really great feeling amplifier under the fingers and to the ears. And again, I was using the B15N, same exact settings that I had on the previous demo, the orange OR 120 settings, because that particular bass tone, once you've got a great bass tone and it's got kind of a vintagey vibe and a little bit of pop, a little bit of vintage, it works on a bunch of things. Love that sound. Now for something a little heavier. So for that one, I was doing my best to channel my inner Metallica. And, you know, honestly, it's one of those things where it can either go really well or go really badly and people just mock you. Hopefully that was on the better side of well done. In any case, the goal there was to take the hard pan left and right guitars and get them to sit in the right place with the drums and the bass. So that was a MESA Boogie dual rec. And one of the things I want to point out is a great tool is you palm mute, and then you take the bass frequency, you turn the bass up, and you sweep the bass frequency until you find that sweet spot, and then you bring the bass down. That's one of the ways you can kind of fine tune the bottom end. Also, the presence control in combination with the resonance control, it's kind of like the outside, the top, and the bottom that sits around, depending on the amplifier. Generally, it sits above the treble and below the bass. So you can kind of, again, chisel away at things. The dual rec can get a little hairy in the bottom end. And at the top end, if you're not careful, it can, although it's not a fizzy amp, it can begin to get fizzy. So you've got all this information to deal with. One of the other things that I did was I used a little bit of compression in the front end of the amplifier, just to, again, tighten things up in the hip. Now, the Aguilar bass amp, slightly sad story. I didn't document where the settings were, and then on top of it, I overwrote the preset, just in case I had. So I'm not absolutely sure, and I tried to restore it, and no go. So in any case, I I took a similar approach, but rather than kind of palm muting and adjusting the bass, what I did was I soloed the bass with the drums, listening for the combination of how the bottom end is sitting with the kick drum and how the transients are sitting with the snare drum. Because ultimately, the bass has to live with the drums and kind of have this hand in glove sort of relationship. Then you also then want to solo the bass and the guitars and see how they're living together and then pull the whole thing together. Overall, I was very happy. At one point, I was like, I don't know if this is going to work, but in the end, I think it did. All right, so that gets us to kind of playing out here. This last kind of demo is utilizing the MESA Boogie Mark III. I'm a Boogie fanatic, in case you hadn't noticed, and this one is probably the closest to home for me of anything. I am also, it's kind of an interesting happy accident. I use the JC120 tone model, but it's just the amp. There's actually not an IR on it, but I really love the sound. Got some modulation on there, and of course the B15N on the bass. All right, for more information about TONEX, please visit ikmultimedia.com. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I want to invite you to do so. Don't forget to ring the bell so I can let you know when more videos are going online. And again, thanks so much for watching. Cheers.